Hola!
Hello.
I should have brought out my earbuds, but for now, let's just go like this.
Oh no, it's okay. No earbuds needed. No earbuds needed. We can hear you perfect.
Okay, cool. How are you today, Jerome?
I'm doing well, Eva. Doing well. Great to see you.
It's great to see you too. You've been asking me to join you for a conversation for some time, and I just didn't feel called, and then suddenly I felt called, and I was like, okay, I guess now's the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm honored, I'm thankful, I'm grateful. Why did you feel called? Why did you feel that now was the time of all times?
I don't think I know why. It wasn't really very specific to me. It was sort of just like, hey, he's been inviting you to chat for some time. You've watched many of his chats with other people. They're always quite, uplifting, enlightening, bringing new information, sharing new information. And so I was, I guess I was ready.
Hmm.
I don't know.
It's interesting that you say that, Eva, because you're always actually the same. Like you're encouraging, you're enlightening, you're sharing knowledge with others. Like somebody could just go on your story and they'll see things that you're sharing with people just out of the kindness of your heart, like out of the goodness, or what would you say that you share out of? What compels you?
It's the stuff that comes to my feed that I have literally never, almost never searched any of these topics. It's my energy's desire to know this stuff and to connect with people who know this stuff and to share this stuff with people who might want to know things. However, folks have also sometimes chosen to want to keep a distance because they're like, how come it's not actually you
Hmm.
talking, embodying, being, doing, sharing? And I just hadn't, that it was never me to be like that, to be. And what I mean is in this way, in this third party kind of connected through technology kind of way. I've always been a very in real life person.
Yeah.
So I think perhaps I rejected this kind of connecting because it somehow felt less than. But right now in this moment, and when I've watched your other lives and other people's other lives, it didn't feel less than. So that must have been a program that I was trying to let go of,
Wow.
maybe.
Wow. Thank you for your honesty. I'm still letting go of so many programs. Like there's so many things that have been installed, over the years that I'm slowly letting go and I'm slowly shedding away. And, has this been one of the biggest programs that you're reworking, reprogramming, deprogramming, or do you feel that there's been even bigger programs that have been more challenging than just, the technology?
Been even bigger programs, so many huge, vast programs. Um, is this one of the biggest? Maybe in the sense of blocking me from making the new connections that my heart has really and my spirit has really longed for. Um, because that's what this feels like, this feels like a connection. And when one has had to let a lot of connections go, because the health and wellness and desire for change and knowledge and embodying that in one's real life, if not online, um, I couldn't stay with those people anymore. And that meant pretty much everyone is part of the past. I still love them. Um, I guess I had to choose to love myself a little bit more
Mm.
in order to see that they don't want to evolve. They're not willing, they're not choosing, and I can't choose not to.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get what you mean, because even when you're, referring to yourself as one, I love the way that you talk about yourself, Eva. You say when one has chosen to let go, or when one has come to the realization, when one, do you always refer to yourself as one?
No, I'm practicing creating space for my reality to be others' reality, to see us all similarly, so that when I'm speaking about myself, I've had a lot of projections of, oh my goodness, could you be more like self-absorbed? And I'm like, do you want me to speak for you? Because I'm pretty sure that one's going to get me demonized too. If I can't win with someone, I just sort of say, okay, no worries, bye-bye, gotta scoot. So no, it's been a way to try and bridge that gap of misunderstanding that has brought a lot of conflict into my life in the past, where I'm like, I can't go either way without somebody having an issue with me.
Mhm.
Can I figure out a way that sort of rides the middle and doesn't offend?
Mm. Okay, okay. So to be less triggering to others who might, be more sensitive when they feel like you're calling them out, or they feel like you're attacking them or targeting them, you're saying you say one to bring more unity consciousness, to bring more like togetherness in that way?
Yes. So if I were to talk just about me, right? And I'm saying, well, so my truth and in my experience and from where I sit, then I've had people projecting being like, well, oh gosh, so do you see things any other way? And I'm like, no, I can totally see it this other way too. And then they're like, oh, are you saying that that's the way I see it? And I'm just like, oh my gosh, how did we get into this perplexing situation where you keep asking me to adjust how I am, and every time I adjust, you're more and more irritated at me, when all I'm trying to do is maybe even answer a question that was asked of me. It's like, I can't have that be the way anymore. I've been isolating, but I call it soul, soul aiding. Um, it, it has been difficult
Mm.
many times.
Okay.
By many times, I mean many moments. Never many moments in every single day, moments here and there. And in those moments, I just ride that stuff out. But that's how it came to be that I started speaking more as like, I am sharing my experience, but I'm kind of calling myself one so that maybe the other one can relate
Mm.
and see it as less volatile. However, they were seeing it that was causing,
Right,
this.
right,
I just got
right.
very tired of this.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. It gets tiring. It gets tiring after a while, like all the confrontations, the complications, and the frustrations with other people when you're just being a reflection, just having that connection. Someone always feels it as a projection. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. So, with finding these new ways, what did you say when you said that, there were separations from certain individuals? When you went into that isolation and found more inspiration, what was one of the most challenging separations, or maybe people or loved ones that you had to let go? Because I certainly have had to let go, of certain friends and people that I came up with that I thought were long life or lifelong bonds that are no longer.
Right. Um, The hardest ones have been family members. And when I say family members, I mean not just the bloodline family members. I mean anyone that I was with long enough to be at bloodline family member events, part of, deaths and births, part of unions and breaking of unions, these huge things in our life. All of those people were family to me. um, just in the last less than a year alone, two women, one 30 years, one 13 years. um, I miss them every day. However, I also realize, and this is sad too, what I miss is the idea of them. I don't actually miss their behavior. I don't actually miss interacting with them, because the level at which we were interacting was so shallow that it was harming me. And it was probably harming them too, but I can't speak to their awareness and I can't speak to their experience. I know it was harming me physically and emotionally and mentally and stunting my growth. And I just was finally at the point where I think I was physically healthy enough, finally, for the first time in my life, to say, being me and living in my physical body is not so depressing that I can actually be by myself and not kind of go down a very slippery slope very quickly, very often, because that's what used to happen a lot. That is what I think happens to a lot of people who are struggling with physical health issues and pretending like their health is okay, or that their physical being is actually supporting them in earning a living or whatever else they're choosing to do or be with their time. um I mean, I just, the connections, they were everything, and they also weighed me down a great deal for a very long time.
Wow. Wow.
And I will never stop loving those people. They are always going to live. I have too good of a memory to ever forget them.
Right. Right. And you
I don't know, I don't know if there was one specific person that was difficult, because in the last 7 to 8 years, like pretty much everybody has fallen away in one way or another.
wow. Wow. So you said everyone. Everyone.
Almost everyone.
Okay.
I live with my elderly parents, who happen to be divorced and have been divorced for a very long time. It's a very challenging thing to do. Um, um, so I see them every day, but really I don't have interactions with very many other people. Lots of life in the yard, about in the neighborhood. Luckily, even though I live in a desert that's very, very hot, and we definitely have to pipe in water in order to be here, right? There's a lot of life here, and there just happens to be a lot of life in my dad's extraordinarily lush backyard. So sometimes I think people feel more isolation, thinking that they have to be with people. I think it's that you have to be with other things that are alive. And if those things can't be people, let them be the trees, the grass, the birds, the geckos, the whatever, cats,
Mm.
the dogs that you hear barking in the background, not at this very moment, but at certain times.
Yeah. 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 Very true. You know, the life that is all around us, you know, the life when we have ears to hear and when we have eyes to see, there's life all around you and me, you know? So you're reminding me too, Eva, that yeah, when I was in I have some great memories in Sedona. you know, like there was just there was a lot of life, and also the group that I was with in Sedona was really awesome, and just to be there, it felt like an energy of its own. Like when we were coming in, when we were driving in, the energy shifted, you know? It felt like the whole air was different. Like it was really awesome. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
energy vortex there, like the other places on the earth, right, that have that, it's very real. Like you said, it's very palpable.
Right.
It may not be palpable to people who have less
Mm.
awareness, right? But people with the awareness that I think you, me, and a whole bunch of other folks on the earth, it may sometimes seem there aren't very many sort of at one's convenient, disposal. I hate to even say it that way. That sounds weird, but you get where I'm going at with that. Um, we those of us that are like that pick up on it. And you said having eyes and ears. I'm sure Helen Keller, who had eyes and ears, they just didn't work, right? Still with her skin, would feel all of this
Yeah.
and would know that there are sometimes the birds fly so close to me, I feel their wings. The way it is when you're in a car and a semi goes by you and your car like suddenly jolts forward a little bit or
Mhm.
whatever, you get caught in that energy
Mhm.
that is moving, that is creating wind, right? That is palpable in the air. So it's the same thing. So I'm sure even if I didn't have these, senses that I do have that work, that are engaged, um,
Yeah.
that I could still sense it. I could still go to a tree and touch it and know that it's alive because it wouldn't be standing if it wasn't, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. I completely agree. And, thank you for bringing that up. That's a great point that you make, Eva, because that story, The Story of My Life by Helen Keller, when I read that book, it was life changing, to just feel her experience, to witness what she had to go through, what she had to grow through, and what she was able to sense without the use of all of her senses,
Yeah,
what she was able to pick up and extract. I remember reading, she said that it was like her fingers were hungry, like she would drink, they were thirsty, they were hungry. She described her digits, her fingers, as being hungry and thirsty for knowledge, for the world. In books, like literature, books became her utopia. She lived in the land of literature. She lived and she could experience, she could feel, she could just, it was so alive,
yeah,
even though, one might look at her experience and say that she was unfortunate. She had so much that she was grateful for, It's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. You saw the movie Mask, right, with Eric Stoltz and Cher?
Mm.
Did you see that film?
Mask, I've only seen the Jim Carrey Mask. I've only
Oh yeah,
seen the movie with Jim Carrey,
yeah.
the Mask.
Oh no, so there's a much earlier one. I think it might have been in 1981. Eric Stoltz and Cher. Also, Laura Dern. You know who that is? The blonde girl from the original Jurassic Park.
Okay.
Anyways, so he was showing her how to. She was blind.
Mm.
He had a massive deformity on his
Mm.
face. So she was like the first person that like accepted him. He was talking to her about colors when they were out in nature. She didn't get it. He said lots of people had tried to explain it. He showed her by using things like cotton to explain what white was. Um, he put some, I think it was like hot towels in her hands to explain what red was.
Mm.
He put ice in her hand to explain what blue was. And as she's having these sensory experiences without her eyes, right? She's like, "Oh, I understand what these colors look like to other people because I'm so it's very similar to the Keller thing. I'm forgetting how much younger you are than me because you're like the same age as my daughter. And so that's why you probably haven't seen Mask, the original Mask. I would highly recommend seeing it. It's a very beautiful, touching film.
It's on my list now. You know, yeah, yeah. And you know, I love that you described that because, you know, we do often take for granted even the senses that we have.
Yeah,
You know, just the sense, just the ability to be able to sense things at the level that we do. It just kind of, you know, we don't realize how much of a blessing it is until, you know, we don't have that
yeah,
sense. So yeah, just to see that somebody can come to their own understanding. Like I remember reading that book and Helen Keller talking about how, I mean, how much of a challenge it was to learn how to speak, like to learn how to talk when she couldn't hear and she couldn't see, so she couldn't see other people to like mimic what they were doing. She had to feel their face with her hands and like as their mouth was moving, and then she
yeah,
had to like she couldn't hear the words, so she had to, and then she learned how to talk. I can only understand, like I can imagine the euphoria, the elation, just the celebration of speaking, you know, learning how to do something that people thought was impossible. Like it never happened. She did it.
it's crazy, right? And remind me, wasn't that around like 13, 14, 15 that she finally grasped this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, she was very bright. She was very like dedicated. Yeah.
Right, but what I'm saying is, could you fathom 13, 14, 15 years? You can't understand anything of anyone else, nor can you convey anything of your own for that long. That's why she had so many brilliant things to share with us, because she spent so much time just going, I'm the only one who knows anything about what I comprehend and the way I comprehend and the way I grasp this
Right,
reality.
right, right. So, you know, she had to have spent so much time, like hours and like days and weeks and years in isolation, you know, so much isolation. And, you know, thankfully that she had, you know, her guide, her teacher, that she credits so much of, you know, her breakthroughs, she credits to her teacher. But, you know, when it comes to being in isolation, when it comes to, like you said before, Eva, you said that there were certain things that were shallow that became harmful. Like the shallowness was harmful. So when it comes to something that's more deeply enriching, what have you found through isolation that allows you to be alone without being lonely?
Um, Conscious breath work,
Okay.
con- conscious movement. And what I mean by conscious movement versus saying some specific type of, yoga,
Mm-hmm.
qigong, tai chi, any of those things, is I'm more just, I've taken from all of that stuff, bits and pieces. Um, but I just do what my body tells me to do. I sink into my body. I use the intelligence of the connection of my DNA to my brain, just like my DNA to my gut, just like my gut to my brain, and all of those three connecting, right? To just kind of go, okay, that feels like it needs to be stretched in this way. This feels like it needs to be stretched in this way. And also, because of how long I was physically ailing, previous to the last less than a decade of my life, um, I just do kind of like microbursts. I'll just do these things for, say, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, and then I just am not doing them for 10, 15, 20 minutes. And then my body just asks me to do it
Mm.
again. I'm resetting my musculoskeletal system, and I'm about coming up on my 50th.
Mhm.
So I don't know how many people attempt to do such a thing at such an age. It would be awesome to find other people attempting to do this. It's very challenging, and so, you know, like the way in which my body had to come apart
Yeah.
from misalignment in order to be flexible enough and move enough to create alignment underneath all of the tissue,
Mm.
fascia, nerves, the whole business of it, while having gravity on us. So it's been really challenging and really painful.
Mm.
But I needed that pain in order to release the stuff that was stuck in there that was keeping misalignment, because when I didn't have the pain kind of signaling me, hey, keep working on this, keep working on this, don't stop, don't stop, I veered off the path of working on the stuff I needed to work on because I didn't have something right there, being like, no, 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 stay the course, stay the
Wow.
course.
Wow. Thank you for sharing this. So, my goodness. So you said you needed that pain.
I did. I also needed it to release the emotional stuff that was stuck.
Mm.
Um, may I offer a little backstory?
Of course.
Um, my appendix ruptured internally when I was 9 years old, and I was septic for about 24 hours before I got medical attention.
Mm.
Um, so things were pretty messed up inside my body. Um, my organs were functioning at an extremely low level.
Mm.
At an extremely taxed level. And I just didn't know this because once they released me out of the hospital, they were just sort of like, she lived and she's better and she doesn't have an infection anymore. And, you know, get back to life as life goes. Um, Life as life goes at that time was going back to school, right? Which is sitting a lot of the time and being quiet, not moving, and standing in line and not moving. My body still needed to get so much stuff out.
Mm.
Um, and there was the way our society is set up, there was no space offered for that. So it just ended up taking a really long time for me to heal from what initially happened way back then, and then the things that occurred since then that maybe other people wouldn't have had to deal with because their systems were healthy enough to keep up with the day to day, move through things,
Mm.
etc. Um,
Jesus. Yeah. Yeah. Jesus, you survived that. Like when you when you say, your appendix ruptured, and you said you were 9, you were only 9 years old,
yep.
and they the word septic, and they don't know what that means. Like, how do you describe that when you said your body was septic?
Okay, so right when an organ ruptures, there's going to be a bunch of debris that isn't supposed to be there. The appendix simply happens to be one of the things that the reason it's there is to collect up some toxins and hold them. Um, that's my understanding of part of the appendix purpose. Um, so not only was it releasing the toxins it was protecting me from, and it's supposed to protect all of us from, apparently, hopefully our whole lives, it released the debris of the structure itself into my abdominal cavity, into my bloodstream. Obviously, the bloodstream then carries it to all the other organs. Septic for 24 hours, it's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. A lot of people, in today's day and age, people don't people don't have sepsis for 24 hours. There's too much awareness. There's even a lot of awareness just about sepsis itself from many other conditions that bring it on, right? um,
Yeah.
because people are having this kind of stuff happen. That would be acute sepsis. I also survived um, a condition of sepsis called chronic septic candida overgrowth, which likely was created by the initial condition of the appendix rupturing and the big time antibiotics that I was on for a very long time, like the whole 3 weeks I was in ICU. At 9 years of age, like, you don't want to take the microbiome of the gut out like that at such a young age. However, there was no way for me to be kept alive except to do it that way.
Wow.
Annihilated my gut microbiome, annihilated my kidneys, annihilated my pancreas, and just everything was really low functioning for a very long time, and I was sick all the time. Candida overgrowth is very similar to HIV in the sense that it attacks the T cells of the immune system. So there's this other condition that's not HIV that a whole bunch of people have going on, whether they are aware of it or not, that is basically as bad and makes you susceptible to a whole bunch of sicknesses in the same way that HIV does, because it attacks the T cells and makes them not function properly.
Wow. Wow. Thank you for the breakdown. Just like, you know, just on this, because you're coming from firsthand experience of something that you were lucky to survive, to even be here to talk about this,
Woo!
to be here to testify this is a miracle, It's a miracle. Like you said, people don't go through that in 24 hours. People don't go through that.
Yeah.
So, geez, like, what did you find out that even led to that happening? Like, what was the contributing factor that led up to that?
The father wound and the mother wound. I was deeply neglected and abused by both of my parents from birth. I now know that's because I wasn't the gender that they wanted. There's a whole backstory to that. Sometimes I try to figure a way to share one's own experience, my experience, without bringing too much of other people's private respect other people's privacy. So I attempt and practice the art of respecting people's privacy who their story and my story was intertwined, but I don't want to speak poorly of them. I simply want to share what my experience was. And what my experience was is that I was abused and neglected, and that created a lot of anger. It created a lot of just disruption, just imbalance. Mm-hmm. Children learn how to be people from their parents. And when the parents don't teach that, or when interacting with the parents has been so volatile and so no, it doesn't really happen that much that way. And then one has to learn on their own. I had to learn on my own. It brought about a great amount of awareness. I'm very grateful for the awareness, the high noticing that I have because of that. The anger, not so grateful for, but I'm letting it go. I continually let it go. Because even after my appendix ruptured, there was still anger there, you know?
Wow. Wow. So these were majorly emotional. You're saying these were emotional wounds.
These were emotional wounds. Yep. Emotional wounds that emotions fester for a certain amount of time, varies in all of us, right? And eventually it turns into the physical problems that we see ailing so many.
Yeah. So a physical manifestation of emotional wounds, like emotional trauma, like, when you're talking about this, we just don't we don't realize how much the body is holding, you know? We don't realize like the capacity for storage, not just the capacity for storage in the gut or in the colon or like physically capacity for storage, but like emotionally, not just mentally, but emotional storage that we're holding on to so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think our physical is the only one that has like a breaking point. Our mental, our emotional is boundless as far as I can tell. So if we're storing a whole bunch of emotional stuff because we have endless storage space for it, eventually the body's just gonna sort of crap out on us, you know?
Wow.
I think that's even why heart disease is the leading cause of death. It may not even be the physical, although it may be, because this psychological, mental, emotional manifests into physical, but that's what finally gives out, not our capacity to continue to like have those experiences, is that we're having them and not releasing them, and then they're presenting as physical
Yeah.
ailment.
Yeah. So to come from that, those ailments, to come from, I mean, that danger zone of where you said your kidneys were, where you said your pancreas was, where you said, your whole body, to come to that, to now, like you said, approaching, 50, like
Yeah.
approaching this, like to have, this luxury of life, to have this existence, to have this, and to be so thankful to have this. What did you feel like was one of the biggest things that you had to change in order to never go back to that state again?
I started taking up fasting.
Okay.
Uh, that my first, I didn't even know I was intermittent fasting back in the day, say about 8 years ago. I had never heard these words put together, intermittent fasting. The only fasting I knew about was like fasting, no food. Hadn't even really thought about it in my consciousness in any way. Um, Online, not searching for it, just it coming up in my feed of people who were starting to talk about intermittent fasting. And then I knew someone who had some spiritual beliefs that brought in like 24 hours of fasting. And so, in order to honor them and simply be spiritual and simply be healthy, I was like, oh, I'm going to do that practice while they're doing it on the day that they're doing it for religious reasons. I'm going to do it for solidarity and meeting their energy and honoring them, and because it sounds healthy. If religions that I've been exposed to but no longer practice didn't really offer me that, I was like, oh, okay, so that just seems uplifting in general, so I'm going to do that. So then I did my first 24-hour fast. That one was super hard. Then that was about 2.5 years ago. Then at the beginning of this year, organically in a conversation with somebody, not this kind of live conversation, just in DMs, somebody was asking me, I shared something about something, and they were like, oh, that's so cool. So what's next for you? And I was like, oh, I'm kind of thinking that I'm going to do fast, a water fast. I don't ever see myself not taking in water. To each their own. I think it would be great to be able to do that. With the types of sepsis I have survived, my body never wants to not have the flow that is created by the high quality water. So this person that I was talking to was like, oh, that sounds cool. How long are you going to do this water only fast for? And I was like, I hadn't even really been thinking about it. It had just kind of rattled around like a couple times. But this person, again, people helping other people to realize if it was rattling around a couple times, maybe it wants you to actually do it, be it, embody it, practice it. So I was like, oh, I think I'm going to try 72 hours. I did 24 hours once. It was pretty hard, but I think I could do 72 hours. And they were like, cool, I want to do it with you. Can I do it with you? Can we be like IG accountable? I think was what she said. And I was like, totally. And me and her hadn't really talked before. Her fella and I had talked before because he had lived in Costa Rica. And so I had the whole Costa Rica connection with him. But then she became his lady. And by way of knowing him, she and I kind of started talking. And she was like, okay, so when do you want to do this? And so this was like, I think it was like January 8th of this year. And I was just like, well, why don't we just, you want to just go with February 1st? And she was like, totally, that's my birthday. Let's do February 1st. And I was like, booyah, that sounds rad. Let's do that. A few days before we started, she came in, or I was checking with her to be like, hey, you gearing up? You getting ready? You are you like doing what I'm doing, which is like being aware of the food that I have so that I'm not going to like waste food and food isn't going to go bad, like making sure I haven't, bought too much, because I don't want to do that. That seems not in harmony with like still loving food and being grateful for food and realizing that I want to break from it also. So she said, yes, we have been doing that, but we've also decided, because her fella that I was connected with also was going to do it with us. So it was the three of us that were doing it. She was like, we've decided that we're going to be doing fruit juices and water. So we're not going to be masticating at all. So we're going to do that for 72 hours because we have a lot on our plate. We just don't think we can do. And I was like, that's cool. You guys, we're still being accountable to each other, even though we're not doing exactly the same thing. We're still choosing to consciously take in food differently. Make conscious choices about what our body is telling us it needs and honoring that. So we did that. I made it through 48 hours. I had listened to you and Nabiha. I'm saying her name right,
Yeah.
correctly? Talk about sometimes touching the food will have a certain nourishment. So at the 48-hour mark, I was taking the seeds out of a pomegranate, and boy, I just couldn't do it anymore. Like I those juicy pomegranate seeds were just like, eat me, eat me now. And so I just did. And then I got another, like, I think 16 hours after that, and I really only ate a very small amount. But it kind of taught me that if I have a goal for my fasting and then my body tells me please do it this way. There's something that you don't know about that I'm doing in here that needs this. Mm. So it kind of became more of a lesson of, I didn't fail at what I set out to do. I didn't know what I was setting out to do, because what I was setting out to do was learning to listen to the cues of my body more.
Yes.
And then I took on Ramadan and did that again, not for my beliefs, for the solidarity, for the people in that area of the world, for the Palestinians, for the suffering that has gone on, for the challenge of, could I do it? About halfway through, I think it was day 12, I was like, do I want to take to my bed over the things that are going on in my body because I'm not taking in food until much later at night? Often, the people who are honoring Ramadan as a religious practice, and I know this because I know somebody in Egypt who, for the last 3 years, I was talking on the phone with him when he was doing Ramadan. They will get up just before sunup to have something to eat. So they're actually not going 17, 18, 19, 20 hours without food. What I was doing was breaking fast at sundown and then stopping eating at 11, going to bed around 12, 12:30 a.m., and then not eating until 6:30, between 6:30 and 7 was the sundown time during the month that Ramadan was going on. And for me, there was a lot of those candida overgrowth die-off symptoms is what they're called. You and Nabiha and a bunch of other people, right, that are already quite slender, already possibly not have had a lot of health problems in your lives, still quite young in years. You all don't seem to have, from what I've seen, symptoms that cause you to become fatigued, because there are actually things inside you that are dying that become cellular debris that still need to be moved out. Mm. So as I learned more and more about the difference between, like, I'm not saying that I'm not healthy. I am healthy. However, because of what my body has been through, there are some things in here that respond differently to fasting than, say, someone like yourself, from what I've heard you share of your experiences with it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, thank you for that, explanation and clarification, because, even Nabiha is here as you're talking, Eva. Nabiha is saying, well done, for your fast, like, well done for anything that you're able to do. Well done. Like, just the attempt in, just to say that, I'm going to attempt this, I'm going to, give this a go. And then you did it. And just to see you coming out of it, to see, new realizations, new, and to be able to let go of expectations, to have those realizations is really nice too. Yeah.
Yeah. And to recognize it's not a failure just because we set out for it to be a certain way and it didn't go that way.
Right.
Failure is only if we don't see that we didn't fail in the first place. We don't see the lesson in it. The lesson for me was figure out the balance of honoring other and honoring self at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes.
They're uniquely different.
Right. Right. And, thank you for also sharing that method. I haven't really used that method that Nabiha uses when it comes to, like, connecting with the food through touch. She said something about touching the food and connecting with it through touch.
Yeah, she basically has just said a few times that even interacting with food, preparing something that you're going to eat later after a period of not taking in, right? But you're preparing it so that when you're ready to take something in, it's ready for you, right? So I had wanted to try that to see if, that interaction would create a certain degree of nourishment that my mind and my psyche could actually find to be satiating.
Okay.
Right? To actually help me in my journey of not masticating and not actually taking it in my body. For me, that wasn't my experience. At least that time. I'm sure it at some point will be my experience. I'm just not at that point yet.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And we're all in progress of our own. Like you said, everybody is different and every body is different. So everyone is a work in progress. I love that you say the only failure is thinking that you failed in the first place.
Right. We're so quick to go to that, aren't we? It's one of those programs. It's one of those programs. And it's out there running, and you interact with people. And if they're running it, you're like, ooh, I see that program. I remember that used to be able to run in here too, but I'm choosing for it not to anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Broadening our awareness of what success can look like some posts that I've seen recently. Success is a regulated nervous system. Abso-freaking-lutely. Abso-freaking-lutely. Without a doubt, it is. And there are many, many people out there that have all of this, and their nervous system is a wreck. And that's why this never satiates them. They cannot get enough of it.
Okay. Okay. It sounds like you've met them.
I've met a few probably, but not a whole lot. I've definitely met a lot of dysregulated nervous system folks.
And that was your impression that like the monetary things, the material things, it was like an unending, never satiating, never, you know, but the health is the biggest thing.
I tell you, Jerome, I have had probably in the last 7 to 10 years a total of maybe $50,000 in almost a decade to live on. And I have never been more at peace being inside this vessel and experiencing the human experience, mostly in my father's own yard, than any other time in my life.
Wow. Wow. That's a testament. That's a testament right there. So, one more thing I really wanted to ask you, Eva, because I love your name, you know, and the name that you also titled your Instagram handle is Practicing Gratitude. So it must have been something that compelled you or inspired you enough to make that, your handle, like Practicing Gratitude. First of all, it is a practice. I feel like this, just like meditation is a practice, gratitude is a practice. Just like patience is a virtue, it's a practice. It's something that we work on. So what do you feel like has been most influential, most impacted by practicing gratitude? Like, why is that so key and so important in your life?
Because there's been a lot of crap not to be grateful for. And I just decided I wasn't gonna look at it that way anymore. I was going to see the things like the pain that so many people avoid as something to be grateful for. It wouldn't be coming to me, it wouldn't be here if it wasn't something leading me to something that everyone would think and see and feel to be grateful for. So I had to muddle through all the yucky stuff and say, I'm grateful for it. Even if I was totally sobbing, totally pissed, and totally going, I don't even believe what I'm saying to myself right now. This doesn't even feel real. And yet, yes, I'm grateful. I'm grateful. I'm grateful. And somehow that got me to the point of actually seeing that I was grateful for the stuff.
Wow. So you had to say it in times where you didn't even believe
I
it.
had to say it in times I didn't believe it. I had to say it in times when everything in my body was going, fuck that. Was going, no, that's not even authentic. That's not even true. I had to do it that way because I couldn't really see anything to be grateful for, but I still wanted to have life and I wanted to heal. And so I had to make that choice, and I had to cry when it felt like, and I sometimes I would shake. I would start shaking. My whole body would be shaking. My body was trying desperately to move things out that were toxic through highly compromised detox systems. Every aspect of the detox system was highly compromised. So I had to get shaky, crying, these reactions of the body that create movement out here that help break up the stagnant that's in here.
Right.
It had to go that way for me.
Yeah. Very, very true. You know, yeah, I find gratitude for that. But today we were doing qigong, and during the sessions, you know, there are times where we're intentionally shaking. You know, we call it shaking the chi. There's a motion where we do in the beginning where we're intentionally like shaking the whole body and just kind of lightly bouncing, but just shaking. And I remember someone coming back to me later on, Eva. They said, Jerome, uh, I joined your class today, and first little portion when we were shaking, I just broke down in tears. Like tears started streaming down my face. I just started bawling. I started crying, and I just releasing, and stuff just started coming up that maybe had been dormant or just lying within me. It just started bubbling up to the surface, and I just started purging like all these emotions. And I was like, wow, like that's work right there, you know. So thank you for speaking on that, because you're right. You know, so many of us we avoid that process. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people, I don't think uh, stuff being stuck physically is the only way stuff gets stuck.
Mm.
I'm sure there are plenty of people who all their systems in their body work, they're not carrying any weight, and there are still, blockages. And I would say, that person who, once they started jumping, their cells started moving, and they had that emotional release of crying, that physical release of, getting stuff out of there. And it's it's akin to, we've seen it on movies many times. People will go to, yoga, and then people fart. They're releasing, they're moving their body in such ways that everything is getting sort of reorganized and repositioned in a way that actually creates flow, and then the body releases stuff, right? So really, I think a lot of people are realigning things in their body. They may not see it the way I see it, as I'm realigning my whole musculoskeletal system and everything involved. But I mean, obviously, we probably have minor dislocations of things going on a pretty regular basis with all this stuff that's in the air that has current and energy and draw and pull that we don't really see, right? So I mean, that's so rad that you know that person was like, yeah, we were just doing that shaking with you, and all of a sudden tears just started flowing. I wasn't thinking about anything that was really, gonna make me cry or whatever, and yet that's still what happened. That's so beautiful, Jerome. I'm sure people must share beautiful things like that with you all the time.
It, I'm always grateful to receive them. I'm always grateful to hear that feedback because, even if it's just one, that's really like, I feel very purposeful and I feel very passionate about being able to share these things. And I love that you're sharing this with us because you even bring back memories of me when I was, with these monks and nuns that were teaching me so many things in California. And when I was around them, they're from Burma, so they're from Myanmar. They're all Burmese. But whenever they would flatulate, whenever they would pass gas, no one ever said, excuse me. Whenever they would sneeze, no one ever said, bless you. It was these things, like these bodily things that they would release. They saw it as natural. They didn't see it as something to be ashamed of or something to be like, oh, I passed gas. Oh, it was nothing like that. They just did it and let it be gone.
Totally. Totally. They're just like, why would I apologize for my body working properly,
Right.
keep me healthy? That's almost like saying, you know what, body, don't do that.
Right.
Like even, we even don't, most of us, a lot of us, even if our stomach gurgles, it's like, why do we feel, most people probably didn't even hear that. Only we heard it. But we were like, oh, did you hear my body working and doing what it's supposed to? Please forgive me for that. Ghastly, I know. It's like,
I would hold it, I remember being, in certain situations where I would hold it in until my body was just screaming,
yeah,
screaming to let this out, like let this out of your body. But because I wanted to be polite, because I didn't want to be, I just held it in for so long. So yeah, thank you for bringing this up.
totally. Totally. It's, somebody had posted a meme the other day saying, what did it say? It was like, hey, old people, I want to let you guys know you're right about everything. This whole gardening, being outside, eating really slow, doing everything really slow, taking naps, passing gas when I want to. It's really it's the life. It's the only way to live. And it's so true because we're another one of the programs is just like hate everything about your own being, everything about our bodies, just tell it it can't be here, tell it can't do that. And it's all part of a bigger agenda for us to be unwell so that we are easily controlled and manipulated and slaves.
Okay. Thank you for, like, reality check, it's that brutal honesty about this. Before we go, if there was just one word of advice that you would give somebody who is listening to you and they say, you know what, I actually have a lot of stored anger. I actually have a lot of things inside me that I haven't gotten, that I haven't released, that I've been holding on to for decades. What would you say is the first step that you would advise for somebody to do to just go about starting to get that out?
You gotta, to unpack that stuff, we have to look back. We have to look back and see those things that created the problems and give them whatever they needed that created the negative emotion that turned into the physical manifestation of the ailment. Um, Even if it's just depression, to me, that feels like something that needs to be looked at, something that needs to be let go. start creating more flow in our own bodies with movement, with breath, with more water. More water is probably the easiest beginning. I think dehydration is very rampant and very detrimental. Not wanting to ever look back does not feel energetically sound to me. It feels like a recipe for disaster. And with humans embracing history and learning from history so much, why would we not want to do that with our own personal history?
Right, right. It's like we're reading all these books, but not the book of our life.
Not,
You know?
not the book of our life.
Yeah,
It's the only book most of us need to
yeah.
pay any attention to.
Wow. And we're writing the chapters, you know. We're turning the page.
Yep.
Yeah,
The moments in the now can be offered to us if we choose them to be for reflection. It doesn't mean that we're not in the now. And it's especially doesn't mean that we're not in the now if we're looking at it for sake of curiosity, for sake of learning and growing, for sake of releasing, not for the sake of this person was wrong or that person was wrong, or none of the shame or blame stuff. So maybe it's how we look back and why we're looking back that makes whether we look back or not relevant. I mean, each person has to make that decision for themselves, I think.
right. I I agree.
Do you look back yourself?
I have, you know, like one of the reasons that I journal, so I do a lot of journaling, and my book journal allows me to reflect. It allows me to look on things that I've overcome, things that I've grown out, things that I actually, you know, for so long that I wasn't able to see until I looked at it through a different lens and until I saw it from a different perspective, like a different angle.
Yep.
So, you know, practicing gratitude, not just speaking, not just listening, but also writing these things down. You know, having a gratitude journal, having something I can go back to and say, wow, you know, I'm so thankful. So
Yeah.
it's definitely helped over the years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I haven't done a gratitude journal. I've done dream journaling.
hmm,
And also, because I used to go to the doctor a lot and had a chart, I also was trained as a medical assistant. So I was very used to charting things. I have kept a daily chart on myself. So I have, notebooks from the past almost decade of keeping track of certain things, bowel movements, my basal body temperature, how much water I take in, when I break fast, certain types of movement. But yes, I was really building off of what you said about being able to look back, because the whole reason we couldn't see whatever we needed to see back then is we didn't have the right perspective. We didn't have the right lens. That's why it manifested internally and we held on to it. When we have the right lens to look at it is when we're, like able to release it
right, right.
and able to grow through it and learn from it and level up even, because to
Absolutely.
me, I feel like I was just born. I know I got another 50 years at least. So I am only at midlife at 50. I don't care what anybody says or what the numbers say about it. You don't birth yourself the way that I have at this age and not go, oh, I at least got another 50 in me from here. You kidding me? Do you know what I lived through? You don't. But if you did, you'd say I have at least another 52.
Yes. Oh, I just love it. I love it. You know, love your spirit. I love your courage, your bravery, and your just willingness, you never gave up on yourself. You never gave up, you know. So my but thank you for this conversation.
I
You know,
love your spirit. I'm grateful to you for continuing to invite me to have a conversation until I finally did. And may there be many more.
yeah,
Today has been lovely. I have enjoyed spending this afternoon with you.
likewise. And enjoy the rest of your day. I hear the birds chirping. It sounds lovely out there. It looks lovely out there.
It's
Yeah.
it's a pretty good yard for a desert.
Well, enjoy your day. Enjoy
Thank
your
you
day.
so much. Enjoy the remainder of your day. Thank you for inviting me to talk today.
Absolutely. Take care.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.